Hey, what's going on, guys? Marvin here. Welcome back to another video. So in this video, I want to show you how to vet out your suppliers. So you either will find out if your supplier is legit or if they're not and there's somebody you want to stay away from. Now on the channel, I often talk about making sure your suppliers are good and that you need to vet them out. And that's very, very important, but I haven't shown you how to do that. So I'm going to show you that in this video. Now you're going to want to stay until the end of the video because at the end, I'm going to tell you a few questions that you need to be asking your suppliers. There are just a few questions. There's a lot that goes into it, but these are great starting questions to make sure you're on the right track with that supplier and you're not working with somebody that you shouldn't be working with. All right, so the first thing that you need to do is start on Google. You need to find a few suppliers and then you need to start going down the vetting process. A few suppliers that I'm going to show you in this video were found using the Google method. So it's a good method to find good suppliers, but you're also going to run into those bad suppliers you're going to want to stay away from, and I'm going to show you all of that. So make sure you stay until the end, like I said, and you're going to want to pay close attention because there's a lot of stuff we're going to cover in this video. All right, so let's get started. So the first supplier is Shepper, okay? Or Shepper, however you want to say it. And right off the bat in the homepage, it shows Marvel, it shows Disney, it shows a lot of, brand name products, and that's the first thing that we're going to be looking at. We're looking for brands. If you're looking for distributors, then you're looking for brands because those are the brands that you want to sell. It doesn't necessarily need to be a brand that's as big as Marvel or Disney, but it just needs to be a fast-selling brand. So if it's a brand you've never heard of and then you go and type it into Amazon and it sells very well, then you can still go to that supplier and buy some products. It doesn't have to just be Marvel or Disney or Hasbro or brands like that. But I like to look for brands like this. And this is what we've, come across. So we're going to go down. And we can see that they have a lot of brands. They even have a featured brands: Nerf, Hot Wheels, Disney, Fisher-Price, bunch of stuff, right? So from here, that's the first step. And we know that, all right, this supplier has met that first step. So now we need to go down the list and take it a step further. So I always like to look for a Contact Us page and an About Us page. The reason I want to look for an About Us page is because I want to know a little more about the supplier before I contact them. I want to know how long they've been a distributor. I want to know, just a little more background on them. The reason I say this is because when I first started out, I would look at About Us pages, or I would run into a ton of suppliers, and some suppliers' websites aren't direct as we are a distributor, or we are a closeout, or we are, whatever it may be. So it's always good to go to an About Us page, find out that they're a distributor, just like we are right here, and then you're good to go. If you already know right off the bat, then you don't have to worry about this. But once you do start going down the rabbit hole, finding a ton of suppliers, some suppliers' websites are like that, and you need to confirm who you're buying from and what kind of supplier they're going to be, okay? So that's why I like to go to an About Us page. Now, the next one is to go to Contact Us. I'm always looking for an address, a phone number, and if they're based out of the US. And we have all of that here with this supplier. We have a phone number, we have an email, we have an address right here, and we know that they're in the US because this is in New York. All right, so that is the minimum criteria that I look for just to get them on the phone, okay? Just to email them or call them. I always recommend calling them, but they need to meet that criteria for me to reach out to them. If they don't have an address, sometimes that's okay as long as they have a phone number, but if they don't have anything, or they have an international phone number or an international address, then I just move on because I'm only dealing with US-based suppliers because I'm only selling in the US marketplace. All right, so this supplier has brands, it has all the stuff we need in the About Us page, and it has all the stuff we need in the Contact Us page. So we would go ahead and contact this supplier. All right, so now let's look at a few other suppliers that we would not contact. All right, so this supplier is Novelty Company, and they're a wholesaler for novelty products. And if we go down this website, we can see that they just have generic products that don't have any brands on them or anything like that. Even their batteries don't have any brands that I've ever heard of, but it's just very generic products on here, okay? And then if we go down to toys, we can see that their toys also don't have any brands on them. So this is a supplier that I would not contact just based off of they're just selling generic products. So I would just move on. And then if we go down to Contact Us, they are US based, they're in Utah, and they do have a phone number and an email, but they don't have any brands that I'm interested in. So since they don't have any brands or products that I'm interested in, I would just move on. And you're going to find a lot of suppliers like this that are just like kind of these super old websites that don't really have products that we're interested in. Happens all the time. And now we're going to look at a few other suppliers that are just a dead giveaway. Do not work with them. So this is Alibaba. Alibaba is great for private label sellers. We're not private label sellers, okay? So if you find toys, using a certain method that you may have, and it leads you down to Alibaba, don't buy it, okay? We're not trying to import any products. We're not trying to buy from these manufacturers. We're trying to buy from the distributors that are already in the US or manufacturers that already have the products here in the US, not Alibaba or DHgate. Now, DHgate also has a lot of manufacturers on here, just like Alibaba, but it has a lot of US manufacturers as well. But DHgate has been known to sell counterfeit goods. So just be aware of that. I would completely stay away from DHgate and Alibaba altogether when you're doing the wholesale model, because we're not doing private label. All right, so those are dead giveaways as to, this supplier is good and this supplier is bad. But you're also going to run into these suppliers that it's a little harder to distinguish whether it's somebody you want to look further into or it's somebody you want to stay away from. And the perfect example that I have for you is License to Play. Now, you may have run into License to Play. They're one of the first people that pop up when you use the Google method under Toys Distributor. And, at first glance, they look like a decent supplier, right? They have a bunch of brands, Barbie. What else do they have that I know of? Fortnite. I think they have Nintendo on here somewhere. Yeah, Nintendo right here, right? So they, at first glance, it looks like a pretty decent supplier that we would most likely be interested in. But luckily for you, you're watching this video and you'll know what to look for when you are vetting out your supplier. So we're going to scroll down and we're going to look for an About Us page. There is no About Us page, okay? That's very strange for most distributors. I guess sometimes it happens, but the majority of people have an About Us page because they know that it's important to really talk about their company for people that are coming to try to do business with them, okay? So they don't have an About Us page, all right? So we'll just move past that and we're gonna go do the Contact Us page. We'll go here and we see that they have a phone number and they have an email address and they just have their website, right? But what they don't have is a address. Why don't they have an address? If you're a legitimate business that's a distributor of these toy brands, these major brands like Nintendo, Shopkins, and stuff like that they have on their homepage, why don't they have an address? A legitimate business will always have an address on here. All right, so not having an address tells me one of two things. Either they're international, so they're not US based, or two, they're not a legitimate distributor or manufacturer or business of any kind, because any legitimate business will have their address on here. It doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't. So it's going to lead me to the first thing that you should be looking for when you're vetting people out, when you're vetting out these suppliers. You need to look up their address. Even if they do have their address on here, go to Google Maps, type it in, and make sure it's legit. And that's what we're going to do here, because we can still find an address for them. We just have to take an additional step to get that information. So we're going to go back to Google, and we're going to type in License to Play address. So it does give us an address, and it's linking it right here. License to Play has the website that we just looked at, has the map, and it's somewhere in New York, right? All right, so then we're just going to go down into Google Maps and make sure they're a legitimate supplier. So we're going to go here. It's going to lead us to Google Maps, and we're going to do a satellite view. And then we're going to zoom in because we want to see what building they're in. All right. So right off the bat, if you don't know or you don't realize, this looks like a residential area, okay? And most businesses that I'm aware of are not going to have a pool or a back deck. So we're going to grab our little guy. We're going to move him to the street view. Put him in front of the house, in front of the address. So this is clearly a residential area. And this is the address to License to Play right here. That's clearly a house, right? So this supplier is not legitimate. They may look legitimate from, face value on the front of the website, but if you really dig deep and you know exactly what to look for, questions to ask, it's going to lead you down this road where you're going to run into somebody's house, and then you don't want to be sending people like this your money because you may not get it back, right? And then another thing that we can look for is if you go back to Google Maps, we go here, right? So this is the homepage of, the address you just typed in. If we scroll down, they have reviews. Cool. And it says this right here, drop shipper pretending to be wholesale. Sometimes these reviews are not, legitimate or reliable for one reason or another. But in this case, I'm going to say that they are, because even if they didn't have this review on here, I wouldn't look any further into the supplier, because One, they don't have their address on their website, which is a red flag. They don't have an About Us page, which is also a red flag. And then they're operating their business out of a residential house, right? No business that's a distributor is going to be operating out of a house. So license to play, although it looks, at face value like a legitimate supplier because of all the brands, don't get sucked into just looking at these brands. Dig a little deeper. Learn how to vet out suppliers so that you can make good buying decisions, because the last thing that you want to do is send somebody your money and then not get it back or not be a legitimate supplier. Okay, so that's why it's very important to always, and I mean always, vet out the suppliers, even if it takes a few extra steps and takes you a little bit longer. All right, so that's step number one when you're vetting out suppliers. You want to know their address. Even if it has it on there, just type it into Google Maps, find out their address, make sure they're legit, okay? So then number two is you want to find out if they're authorized. We want to be working with authorized suppliers that have the full rights to sell us these products so that we can go and resell them, because we don't want to run into any issues with brands, okay? So this is EE Distribution, and if we scroll down right here, we can see that they're a premier Hasbro distributor in the United States. Sometimes when you're trying to figure out if a supplier is authorized or not, you don't really know which direction to go, right? So there's a few easy ways to find out if your supplier is authorized. One is that they tell you on their website, and I know for a fact that EE Distribution is an authorized distributor of Hasbro, and they're located in the US, okay? So number one is that you can go onto their website, look in the About Us page, look in the Contact Us page, look all over their website, and if it tells you on there, then you know that they're an authorized distributor of that brand. Now, another way that you can find out is just by asking them, right? When you're going to call them to vet them out, you're going to call them and ask, are you an authorized distributor of so-and-so brand? They're going to tell you yes or no. Some suppliers will dodge this question for one reason or another. Doesn't mean they're not authorized. Some suppliers are just terrible at communicating. So just make sure that you get an answer when you do ask them. If you have to ask them again, then ask them again just so you can get an answer, okay? All right, and then the third way to find out is if you contact the manufacturer. So if you go directly to Hasbro, you call them, you email them, and you ask, is this supplier authorized to sell your brand? So is EE Distribution authorized under Hasbro to be able to distribute their products, okay? Now, a lot of people may think that, oh, why is Hasbro going to tell me this? Or why is Mattel going to tell me this? They don't have any problem telling you this because they want to maintain the integrity of their brand and of their products. They're going to let you know, yes, this is one of our authorized suppliers. This is not, okay? So that's another easy way. And like I said, they have no issue telling you that because they want to maintain the integrity of their brand, okay? So again, 3 ways to find out that a supplier is authorized. It either says it on their website, you call them and they tell you that they're authorized, or you go straight to the manufacturer like Hasbro or Mattel and they tell you, yes, this is an authorized distributor of our brand. All right, so that's 2 things that you need to look for when you're trying to vet out your suppliers. You need to look at their address and you need to find out if they're authorized. Now, another thing that you need to find out is a very obvious one, and people like to try to jump around this question and think that there's a secret way of, portraying yourself so that, suppliers will want to work with you. But the question is, you need to ask them if they work with Amazon sellers. Now, people try to finagle their way into asking this all fancy or whatever. There's no fancy way of asking this. You need to ask, do you work with Amazon sellers at one point or another in your conversation? Because there's no way around that. You sell on Amazon, right? You're an Amazon seller. Now, you can't tell them that you're an e-commerce owner or e-commerce business owner, or that you are a retailer, or whatever you want to say it. But at the end of the day, are you selling their products on Amazon? And the answer is yes. And that's your main way of selling them. Then you're an Amazon seller. So you just need to ask them, are you okay with working with Amazon sellers, or do you currently work with Amazon sellers? Now, you're going to get a few answers here, okay? And these answers are very important to how you're going to move forward. You're either going to get, no, we don't work with Amazon sellers. And certain suppliers, you can actually change their minds depending on if you know how to do that, if you know how to turn a no to a yes. You can still kind of work your way so that you can still work with that supplier, but it only works on specific suppliers. So you're going to get either a no, and then you need to know which way to kind of work your way around that, or you're going to get a yes, right? So if you get a yes, there's an additional question that you need to ask, because you can't just get a yes and then be like, all right, where do I sign up? Let's go. All right, so if they tell you, yes, we work with Amazon sellers, the next question that you need to ask is, how many Amazon sellers do they currently work with? Some suppliers work with a few Amazon sellers, and some suppliers open their doors to every Amazon seller, which isn't problematic, right away. But if you guys are all going after the same product, or they have a product that that they just came out and everybody has access to it, it could drive the price down. So you just have to kind of work your way around that, or you have to work harder at building a relationship with that supplier so that you can get first dibs on a certain product when they get it, okay? So again, don't be afraid to ask if they work with Amazon sellers. It doesn't have to be your first question, but at the end of the day, that's what you're doing, right? If your main source of selling your products is Amazon, then you're an Amazon seller. If you have a store or warehouse and you sell, a lot more on, your retail front, then you can say something along those lines. But if you're only selling on Amazon, then you're an Amazon seller. Don't try to finagle your way. Suppliers don't care as much as everybody likes to make it out to seem. They either work with you or they don't. So just ask the question, okay? And then on top of that, you also need to find out if they're authorized, and then you need to look at their address to make sure that they're operating out of an actual building designed for, a distributor, not somebody's house. All right, guys, so that's a great way to get started when you are vetting out your suppliers. This is going to help you a ton. Just rewatch this video if you need to really get everything down so that you know exactly where you need to go and what you need to do, questions to ask, and what you need to look for, okay? So if you guys found this video helpful, make sure to like the video to let me know you did, and comment something down below. Also, look down in the description. I have a bunch of new stuff down there. I have a new free training for you guys. I have a free Facebook group in the description as well, and my Instagram and my Facebook page if you guys want to follow me. I'm going to start posting on Instagram pretty much daily, so if you guys want to follow me on there, then make sure to follow me down there. And if you guys don't know how to use the Google method, you don't know how to find suppliers, then just make sure you watch the video on the screen and I will show you exactly how to do that. I'll see you guys in the next video.